Oh, look, it's time for Bring It In, Troom's little Zoom from ending quarantine show. Like, we can't really say the quarantine part anymore, right? David was just telling us he was hugging strangers this weekend.
Well, they weren't strangers, but yeah, I was definitely hugging lots of people. We were outdoors and we knew everyone was vaccinated to be going to the party I was at, outdoor party. But yeah. So, I mean, it looks like we're emerging to some degree anyway. There's no parades being thrown, which I was hoping for. But yeah, we're heading back in the right direction. We'll see the NBA playoffs.
Confusion about the CDC guidance is a little confusing, but I think it said David Thorpe supposed to hug everybody. I think that's what the CDC said.
I'm down for that. I'll do it for free. It'll be interesting in the playoffs. I was just talking. I did a podcast earlier today already, where the Jazz are almost going to be. Right now, they're saying 75% capacity. I suspect it's going to be higher soon. Lakers all the way down to like 11%, and that could be a first-round matchup. Same as probably Golden State. That'll be interesting to see, because some people are acting like the pandemic's over. Other more intelligent people, I would argue, or more advanced scientific people, not out of the woods yet. So it's going to make for just another interesting recipe in the DNA of what's going on with the playoffs.
I was a little bit, watching yesterday. Crowds are like the last thing we get to do. Indoor crowds are the last thing, right? And then yesterday, my son's like, "What's the deal with this family?" It's like a family of 5 people indoors at an NBA game, no mask. I'm like, oh, that is alarming to see. Like, it is a bunch of people inside with no masks. Is like, whoa, that's a big step.
Yeah.
And the other thing that surprised me is the players are all for it. The players are, that I've heard anyway, like, to me, the players would be the players who have not had COVID. Some haven't had vaccines, running around without masks on. To me, they'd be the ones who would not want fans there. But they're like, the ones I've heard have just said, yes, bring on the fans. It's been terrible without them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't think we'll ever know for sure, Henry, what players haven't got masks. I mean, vaccinated. I know that in my case, I feel really good with the science that I've been vaccinated twice. It's been a month. However, I recognize not everyone can get vaccinated. And even though it's very unlikely I'd probably pass it based on the latest science, I'm happy to wear a mask to let anyone else who's not sure of what they should do. They're going to see this guy wearing a mask indoors wherever I go, unless I'm at someone's private property, right, where I know they're also vaccinated. It's not so hard, but we went shopping some this weekend and we were alarmed that my wife more so than me, because I wasn't paying attention. I'm too stupid to notice those kinds of things. But she noticed that her math was like 35% of Florida's been vaccinated, but 95% of the people in there weren't wearing a mask. That the odds don't work out great. So she's right. Yeah.
And like, I signed up to follow a whole bunch of epidemiologists on Twitter, and they're like, a lot of this math we have is based on the original version of COVID.
Yeah. Right.
These variants spread way more effectively. And, I guess the Yankees had 100% or close to 100% vaccinated, and like 7 tested positive, I think. So anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about the end of the regular season with 15 games yesterday. And I was surprised at how weird it was. Especially, I mean, we can talk about a lot of games were very surprising, but the Clippers seem to throw a game. The Clippers, some people's favorite to win the championship before the season started, lost to the worst team in the league by strategy, you think?
It's fair to guess that someone told Lou not to play guys. And it's not like, it's they weren't playing a ton of games going into the game. So it's, you worry about like injury if you play 4 games, 6 nights, whatever. That wasn't the case for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and Rajon Rondo, and you can go on the list. Basically 4 of their top 5 players. The guys that play hard, like did have the game on. I was telling you whenever Terrence Mann was in the game, he was killing it, and I was very happy for him because I've been a fan for a while. I didn't realize he went 7-8 from the field and was plus 16 in the game in 23 minutes, but they lost by 5. The other guys, Patrick Patterson got a lot of minutes. I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense. So I think I could probably win a court case where I was arguing that they did not want to win. And Oklahoma City is fucking terrible by design. Terrible. So the fact that the Clippers lost tells me something, which is also, I think, to your point, weird. Like, what are they doing? they're trying to play the Jazz, the Lakers, or the Warriors.
Yeah, and it's so the I guess Twitter was immediately certain that they were trying to avoid the Lakers, but that falls apart to me because we don't know where the Lakers are going to be.
Right.
The Lakers could very easily be the 7 or the 8 or out. Right. You can't avoid them. But what they weren't avoiding was the Jazz, that's what surprised me.
Yeah, right. That's the thing is you would think that they'd want to play Phoenix in the second round, right? So then the question is, well, is it a first round? And I get it. I don't agree with it. I mean, I have a history in this, actually more in baseball. When you're playing baseball tournaments, you have to save your pitchers. And so when I was helping run like travel baseball team, not really helping run it, my son was on the team. They would come to me because I was the sports guy. The other guys were all doctors and lawyers, whatever. And they all thought they were armchair GMs. And so they would manipulate our pitchers to make sure we had our best guys, which I'm happy to say included my son, in the finals. And I always reminded them, like, we don't have a golden ticket to the finals. We have to win the other games first. I'd rather do that. If we make it to the finals and lose because we're on the pitchers, hey, it's good experience for the guy we have to pitch. But let's at least get there. It's an experience, right? They didn't really listen to me a whole lot. So we tended to just have my son, another good pitcher, not pitch the semifinal game or the quarterfinal game. It makes no sense. So if the Clippers really think they're going to lose round 1 against a certain opponent, I understand the strategy. It doesn't make no sense to me. And you pointed this out earlier to me on the phone. The players aren't looking to dodge anybody. They're not sweating the Mavericks or the Nuggets or the Lakers. They think they're going to smoke those guys. So this is front office. We'll see, but it could backfire, Henry.
Well, and they get the Mavericks, right? That was the other thing. That's not a great. I don't think that was the first round opponent they would pick versus the Blazers.
Yeah,
you agree?
I think the Clippers all year long have never really turned that corner. This is 2 years in a row. They were just starting to last year in the pandemic break hit. They had done really well, really, really well. And so here we are again, where they were never in contention to be a 1 seed. In 2021, they were never really in contention for the 1 seed, okay? But they should be. So I would argue that they'd be better off let's work on really finding our best groove. I think it matters, momentum going into the postseason. They clearly, management, I don't think, felt that way. And we'll find out now, right? We'll find out what happens. We'll put the money where their mouth is, and we'll see if they still have a job if they end up losing in round 1.
Blah, 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 blah. You got me?
I get it. I agree.
All right, we just published. You picked winners of all 4 known play-in games. The thing that surprised me most about this story was how down you are on the Spurs. You're like, basically the Spurs are no good. That surprised me.
I mean, their record's 33 and whatever, right? Yeah. They're not a good team.
Yeah.
I think losing Derek White, I wrote this too. That he might have been their best guard. He might have been one of their best. He was one of their best few players. And I watched them play all weekend. DeMar DeRozan is still trying his best. They gave up 140, to Phoenix on whatever it was, Friday night. Phoenix sat everyone and they still beat the Spurs in a game that Phoenix wanted to win to have a chance at a 1 seed, but it meant that Utah would have to lose to Sacramento. That was never going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, Phoenix said, you know what, screw it. Let's just play our out of rotation guys. And they still beat the Spurs. They're just disappointing. And I think Memphis is pretty good. So I feel like Memphis has a really good shot to win. They're at home. The Spurs are a brand name, but as a team, they're the Pacers when the Pacers were competitive but not very good. Yeah. And that's who the Spurs are right now.
So there was a funny, in our relationship as editor and writer, I called you with this great idea. I'm like, I think we should put like percentages on how confident you are with each pick. And you're like, you son of a bitch. I tried to do that 10 years ago. And you told me no.
Is that what I said? Because it's true. I was just thinking that just now. I'm like, I said that a long time ago. And you didn't want me to do it. You wanted me to pick a team. I'm like, it doesn't work that way in my brain. It's just lots of shit happen, right? So it's so funny. I forget. I would never have thought about it again had you not said it. But yeah, this is how I always am thinking. It's just odds, right?
And that was the Grizzlies are your most confident pick. You're like, we're gonna go with the Grizzlies because the Spurs are terrible.
Memphis is a good team. They're a good team, and the Spurs aren't. And so why would I not pick the home team that's pretty good against an away team that isn't very good, right? I mean, listen, Memphis aren't world beaters, but if you also look at the matchup itself, you know what San Antonio is not very good at, Memphis also isn't very good at. So I didn't see where the Spurs could really make some headway. Like the Spurs do not turn the ball over, so that's a positive. But that's about it. And then the other thing too is I like the Spurs young big men, but I like Jonas Valanciunas much more. Right. So again, it's just there was no place to look. Now San Antonio, makes 25 threes, they're going to win the game. But they don't take very many threes to begin with, right? So yeah, and neither team shoots very good. So in a battle of a decent team and not so decent team, I'll take the decent team every time at home.
Yeah,
how about you? What jumped out at you? Not from my writing, but just looking at these playing games. What games do you think? Where do you feel most comfortable, least comfortable picking a winner?
That's a good question.
Like I have the Lakers 50.1% to beat the Warriors. To me, it is an absolute coin flip game. Do you not agree?
This is what I'm exactly arguing the NBA needs is more uncertainty, right? But who the hell,
right.
Steph Curry's going to go like this, like 40 times. And I don't know how many times, it could go in 11 times or it could go in 32 times, right? Like that's going to determine the game,
They're taking a lot of
You
threes.
make a good point about the Lakers aren't great protecting the rim. I learned from reading you. And Steph's pretty good at attacking the rim, right? So if he were to attack the rim early, it might scramble the Lakers' defensive approach a little bit and get the rest of the Warriors some open looks.
Well, yeah. So this is what you're worrying. You're wondering what LA wants to win this game. I don't think LA wants to play Utah. I don't think they want to have to play a game just to get a chance to play Utah, which is what that would be if they lose to the Warriors, right? It's a one and done. If they lose to Golden State, they have to win the next game or they're out.
Right. And if they beat Golden State, they get the rest of the week off.
Oh, right. So yeah, it's a win-win. You play Phoenix. Right? Yeah. They won't play again. That's right. If they win, they're the 7th seed against Phoenix. In my opinion, significantly inferior to Utah. You get a full week rest. Exactly right. Otherwise, because right now they're playing Wednesday. They won't get a week off necessarily. They might play 5 days.
Get till Sunday or whatever.
Right. Yeah. But if they don't win, now they play Friday, and then we don't know when the games start after that, but I bet it'd be Sunday, Monday. So my point is LA definitely wants to beat Golden State. So what are they going to do? Are they going to try to double Curry early? He's seen that before for a decade, right? They do have some good shooters around them. They're willing to shoot a lot of threes. But again, LA just isn't great at protecting the rim, especially when Drummond's in the game. And so Wiggins is starting to play better. Draymond Green had 4. I wrote this. I don't know if it made the final copy. He's had 4 straight games with double figures.
Yeah, it's in there.
That's not happened all season. So this is something he and you can watch the games. He's they do a lot of dribble handoff action, and he likes to hand it off or quickly pass to Curry after if he takes the handoff then pass it. Now he's taking the handoff and go to the rim himself. That's what they needed all 2 years in a row. They've needed from him. So if you want to double Curry and now you're playing 4-on-3 everywhere else, I don't think that's so easy. And remember, the Warriors were the best. They were the second best defensive team the last 15 games behind Utah, amazingly enough. Without Conley and Donovan, they still guarded. Golden State can guard. Now, I don't think they match up great with those gigantic men for LA, as opposed to maybe matching up with, like a Luka or something. But still, the Warriors defense is real. It's fast. They're deep. They're aggressive. LA it's gonna be a dogfight. Like I just don't see it as an easy win.
You have to talk about, I never know how to factor this in, but so if you double LeBron, who's been sitting a lot, his brain's a little less attuned to all those quick reads right now than it would be in an ordinary year. Is that a big factor? Is that a small factor?
Well, I mostly teams aren't always doing anything, right? So they'll kind of leave their players a little bit of an opportunity to choose. So when he's got the ball, let's say in the block area or is in the elbow on a hard drive, you can double. You don't have to double. If you give him options, that means LeBron can never really know what you're going to do. He can only guess tendencies at that point, right? So I've written this, and I think we've talked about it. This is the best time to make him think faster because he hasn't played very much. Davis too, right? Drummond's an easy guy to double. He does turn the ball over a good amount, like Embiid does. So that he doesn't turn over quite as much, but he isn't so good against double teams. And Davis is playing better, which is good. There's another factor too, Henry, which is the team ended up not shooting so great. I don't know that I looked it up today, but I think the Clippers ended up being the number one shooting team in the league from three. They pretty much number one all year, which is pretty damn impressive. The LA Lakers are not. So it might be where Steve Kerr says in the first half, let's just see. Caruso, shot well. They have some guys. Kuzma, I think, is playing much better. I'm really happy. I watched him play a lot recently. I really like his progress. But it may be where Steve Kerr decides, let's just see where these other guys are at in the first half, and then we'll adjust if it turns out they're really hitting it. Or they might save it for the second half. That's an interesting strategy. Let's hang around in the first half and then see if those secondary guys can beat us. I don't know what they'll do. We'll see.
Right. I remember in the bubble, Contavious Caldwell was really bad and
then got really good.
Early in the bubble, everyone's like, yeah, they're doomed. Like the Lakers are doomed because this roster is too bad. And then he's like freaking been fantastic, right? I feel like every time I watch the Lakers, that guy seems to never miss anymore.
He went through a really rough stretch earlier this season. I don't know if it was February, it might have been February, where he was just terrible. And then he was really good. Yeah. I mean, and those guys can hound Curry. And I wrote that too. KCP is a long athletic dude. Caruso is phenomenal on the ball. He's not Marcus Smart, but he's a very, very good guy to guard a guy like Curry, because you have to chase Curry around screens with and without the ball. Not many people can do that, obviously. They're the number one defensive team in the league. The Lakers finished the season number one. That's amazing. Golden State ended the year as the second best defensive team. LA was number one over the course of the season. And yet we're talking about normally the offense of LeBron, AD, and Curry. But defense is going to make a big difference there. The reason why, this is going to sound so stupid and simple, but it's reality. The reason why guys like LeBron and Curry are who they are is because it doesn't matter too often how good a defense you play. Right? Yeah. Good defense, great defense really shuts down most NBA players. The elite of the elites, it doesn't matter. That's what makes them so elite. Right. It's not just beating up the bad teams or the average teams. It's being amazing. And to your point, Curry might just go crazy against contested threes from 28 feet. We've seen it before.
Sure.
So, yeah.
He probably will, right? Like it's extremely likely.
Right. You would. Right. I think that's right. I think it's more likely than not. To a point you made, and I want you to talk more about it, this is not what the NBA wanted. The NBA wanted us to talk about winning and strategy of winning in the last 4 weeks of the season and not tanking and losing and positioning. But what they didn't want is some of these of the world's best players potentially not even making it into a 7-game series. And big franchises in big cities too, right?
Yeah, there's so much misunderstanding about how the NBA makes money, right? Like nothing that's happening will make the NBA any money right now, right? The NBA makes its money from 10-year deals from Turner and ESPN, which have underperformed dramatically, right? It's been really bad ROI for those two entities. The worry is the NBA's next giant deal. They might get some Amazon or some Disney Plus to like pay a huge amount of money for it anyway. There's a lot of reasons why that would make sense, but this is like a little tiny improvement in the terrible deal, right? For these big things, there'll be no incremental income for the NBA other than I don't know what happens overseas, etc. But they get 6 more games, and this Wednesday night at 10 o'clock, not a great time, right? Not a time the nation is going to drop everything and tune in. They'll have a very showy game with its 2 biggest stars. But if they didn't have a play-in tournament, they'd have LeBron and Steph preparing for a 7-game series right now. Way more TV revenue from 7 games than 1, right? Yeah. So So yeah, this is a fun little night for the league with a little tiny bit of an uptick in ad dollars for ESPN Turner in an otherwise like very difficult environment. Kind of the end of cable TV generally, when cable TV pays for everything. Like, well, fuck, right? Like this is terrible. You actually brought up an interesting point, which is 15 billion gambled just in New Jersey. Is that what?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that tweet. Dan Ravelli tweeted it. Gambling is, as someone who follows European sports, it's so the norm there. In fact, I track games over there sometimes on a gambling site called Flash Score. I don't know what it is. I've never once gambled on anything. Would never even think about it. But it's just I can't find a ESPN.com Germany to track it, or Italy or whatever. These gambling sites, and in some of the leagues, you actually get the box scores. You don't just get the updated scores, because you can follow the scores live. But in America here, it's getting to be everything. And I think that's part of the play-in factor too. I can even envision a scenario, Henry, where there are sponsors for the playing games and just the playoffs for their jerseys and stuff. You know, if they can show an uptick in eyeballs. But I think more importantly, and I hope you're right about this week, so I won't spoil it much now, but you just said some really smart things to me over the weekend about what the NBA is looking for, right? Games that matter, whatever. We got some games that matter. Like, I don't think anyone really cares about, except for people in Memphis and San Antonio. The average NBA fan doesn't really care. But we have a chance to have some really phenomenal endings and plays. And I'm glad for that, right? I don't think it's a bad thing. And same with me. That's not bad.
Yesterday was fun.
Yeah. Just there was an electricity about some of the games that was nice to see, especially considering, like, I watched the Wizards game. I don't know if you saw that. I don't tend to have volume on a lot, but there's no other games on for a bit that I needed to watch. So I had the volume on, and I walked away a little bit. I'm listening, and it was loud. Pretty sure it was piped in music though, and noise. I mean, I don't think there were many fans in DC, but maybe for the playoffs there will be. I don't think still think it's 10% in DC. It's going to be a small number. But it's too bad, because that does provide, although I will say the bubble last year I thought it was super dramatic games, and there were no fans at all. You couldn't hear any cheering. There'll be a little cheering now. They'll pipe the rest in. But the Wizards are one of the better stories. They're like, I can't wait to watch them play. I watched them yesterday. I can't wait to watch them again.
Yeah, you have them 58% likely to beat Boston.
Yeah.
What do you like about the Wizards?
Yeah, on the road. Yeah, Boston's the home team. Yeah, I mean, I feel for Boston. They're like the Clippers. Well, there's a few teams that never really caught, a groove. And then Jaylen Brown went down. Kemba only playing 43 games, I think. That's everything, right? And then, they traded for Evan Fournier, who's good. Like, he's a good player. And then he got COVID and had the COVID protocols, whatever. Tatum on the inhaler all year, although he had a phenomenal season. They're a star short, Henry. They're a star short, I think.
And what did happen with the Wizards though? Like, they are, among the best teams in the league over the last 3 weeks. Like, what?
Yeah.
What happened?
So at best that I can see it, they made a decision. I don't know if it was conscious or not, where they're playing team bully ball. Mm-hmm. They are busting your ass in the paint. Mm-hmm. With Russell Westbrook, that's wise. Robin Lopez, Alex Len as your centers, not as wise. But guess who had 18 points yesterday in that game? Robin Lopez. He was unguardable in the post with long looping, like, you don't remember a guy named Billy Paulus. They called him the Whopper, but I do. And Robin looked like a skinnier Whopper with his long hooks, whatever. Bradley Beal is breathtaking. Like, the guy is, let me just say this about Bradley Beal. So there are a few perks to my job, Henry, in that I have to watch so many games for so long. One of maybe the best perk, besides just relationships you get, is I can appreciate art the way a real artist can appreciate art in a museum that I can't. I wish that I could. I can't. So Bradley Beal had a transition bucket yesterday with his left hand in traffic that looked like he was dunking a donut in a coffee. But I know most people are 1 out of 10 on that play. And it was a really important part of the game. And the Wizards have been down double figures in the middle of the third quarter. So they're making this valiant comeback. And he has this, and it looks so easy. And I know it's super hard to do against air. Forget about against people, really tall, athletic, strong people. So he's this incredibly gifted scorer. Russell Westbrook has been Superman, right? They have a second-year player, Rui Hachimura, who I have not been a big fan of. But he is a power player. He is a bully, big, strong, athletic dude. He was the one, I think maybe his mom's Japanese. He's good. He's a good player. And they guard the three. And so basically they're saying, we're going to make you beat us at our game, which is paint. They second chance points, fast break points. This is what they do. They've kind of taken on Westbrook's demeanor. And that's good. That's good, right? We probably should write something one day if it's about, like, Russell Westbrook's story is it never stops being amazing.
I know.
It's really like a car accident with the world's fastest car, because there are some crashes and they're spectacular, but the beauty is amazing too, right? So I just think they took on his. So basically, Henry, just to finish up, Beal and Westbrook just decided, fuck it, like, we're going to see how good we can make this team, and I don't think they'll beat the Brooklyn or Philadelphia, but I'm not here to tell you it's a 4-game sweep. Like, I right now I'd pick probably 6 games for either team. And I don't think the Wizards were any good 3 weeks ago when they were 17-33 in April. But now I think they're tough out and they feel confident. Yeah.
And there may be the one example we have of a team like kicking a lot of butt in the modern NBA without shooting threes.
Yeah, no, they've really, I mean, I wrote it. They're one of they take a few threes almost anyone in the NBA.
I think in the last 15 games, I think they're last. But this, there's always been the argument that there would be the pendulum swinging the other way, but and it hasn't, right? There's basically the threes have just gone up, and if you want to win, you have to shoot even more. But this little flurry here from the Wizards is with the right lineup, with Russell Westbrook, with certain personnel, you can beat people up at the rim.
Well,
this is a thing that can happen.
And right, and a little bit ironically, I think they're 11th in 3-point percentage, at least certainly late in the year, 11th. So this is a team that elected to still attack when they're actually shooting pretty good. I think they made the right move. I don't think they're a bunch of great shooters. Bradley Beal is, Davis Bertans is, but they don't have many. And so it's we said this last year when we picked the Lakers to win the whole thing. When you really know who you are, I think it carries a lot of weight, because it helps define. It doesn't just help define your strategy. It helps your execution of that strategy, if that makes any sense. You know what you're supposed to do, not just intrinsically, but consciously, right? And so I think the Wizards know, dude, I'm going to bust your ass. I think that's something I think they're going to go into Philadelphia or Brooklyn, and I just don't think they're going to be scared. You may beat them, but you're going to have to defend the hell out of your midsection because they're coming for it, right? And Russell isn't intimidated by anyone. So, and I don't think Scotty Brooks is the best coach in the world. I've been disappointed over the years in him here and there, but I've always felt like he was a good defensive coach. And I thought that in Oklahoma City, and he has rallied this team into being a plus defensive team as the season went on. Well, we always praise Eric Spoelstra for what he does with the Heat, which he did again this year. As the year goes on, he's amazing. Coach Brooks, 2 years in a row, has taken a complete trash fire of a team and made them into a team that's relatively formidable, and I would even say very formidable for their overall roster, right? They've been hamstrung to some degree. It's impressive, and I hope they go 6 or 7 games if they make it into the playoffs to begin with, because I like to see these. I like Russell and Beal staying together. And next year they get Denny Avdia back. He got hurt late this year. And Hachimura, goes in his 3rd year, and finally might have a regular summer to train and work and all of that. I watched some games yesterday where it was the home team's last game of the season, right? Because they weren't in the playoffs. And I heard David Griffin and Trajan Langdon talk about this in New Orleans and the guys in Minnesota. Hey, we actually can practice our guys this summer. And they can go to their own people and train with 5-on-5 and whatever. They haven't had that. So I think that a team like Washington with those veterans and some of these young guys can make some real progress.
So here's a point of the play-in tournament that's kind of cool. Is I'm about to ask you about what's going to be a nationally televised game, which will be the Pacers versus the Hornets. I mean, that's a matchup that just doesn't get anybody excited on a regular. I guess that'll be Tuesday night. But now we have to care about it because the format makes that an important game, and that's a value, right? So
put that in your article. Put that in your article because you're exactly right. Put that in your article. Yeah. And first of all, there were some really talented players. So I watched the Hornets yesterday. They're not good anymore. They've really struggled. They were bad when LaMelo was playing his best. They were okay. He got hurt. As you've said, when you replace any kind of decent player with a bad player, you're going to go down. And LaMelo is not shooting well at all. He has every excuse. He broke his wrist. The issue is he still thinks he's a good shooter. So he's still going to take those shots. He made a really big three in the fourth quarter. Like, I think they were down one, maybe 5 to play. He made a three. He didn't crow afterwards. He was just a total pro. And I thought, all right, because he had not shot well in the game. I thought it was a nice play. He also, I think, had no turnovers for the game. Maybe he should have had one and give it to him, but he was good. He was solid. And then, like with 2 minutes to go, he gets the ball left corner wide open. And the closeout is really late. I mean, it barely hits the front iron, clangs off the bottom of the backboard. It's one of the uglier misses you'll ever see. And then LaMelo, I was watching Hornets TV, by the way. LaMelo, of course, claimed he got fouled, and I thought it was possible. The guy was really far away from him, but you never know. I mean, the camera angle, and they replayed it, and even the Hornets guy's like, no, he wasn't even close. He might have touched LaMelo like 3 seconds after the ball hit the rim, but you didn't get fouled when your own guys. I actually thought the Hornets announcers were amazing. I don't typically listen to home announcers like that, but they were great. But I'm worried about the Hornets, LaMelo in that moment, because I think the Pacers are going to make him shoot it. I think they're going to make him shoot it, which probably isn't a dumb thing because he's such a gifted passer. And meanwhile, the Pacers, they might have had the worst luck of any team. I've not seen, maybe Devin or someone could look this up, most games missed by projected starting 5. It might be them. TJ Warren was out week 1, right? Miles Turner's been out for a month. They've lost a lot. But Karis LeVert is playing his way back now. So LeVert, Sabonis combination, and they're at home. I think they're the better team.
You pointed out that so May 1st, LaMelo came back. He's shooting 4.5 threes per game since then, but he's only making 24%.
Yeah. He's just, again.
Our friend Jonathan Abrams interviewed LaMelo Ball for the New York Times, and he had it was interesting. LaMelo really, I sensed, like, didn't want to talk about himself in comparison with any other player, past or present, only versus himself, right? Which is a particular way to see the world. But I saw that as a little bit of, I don't know. What's your take? Is that a good thing or a bad thing, or neither?
I think my issue with LaMelo has always been I've never been confident that he only wants to win. I could say that about like James Harden for periods of time where I thought he just wanted to be the best player in the world. Winning wasn't necessarily as important. I don't feel that way about James Harden anymore. Now that I've had a year of watching LaMelo play, I'm much higher on him, which even a year ago I thought he could be Ben Simmons if he could learn to shoot, especially, and he's definitely willing to shoot. Ben Simmons isn't willing to shoot. LaMelo is still a very, very, very bad defender. Although yesterday he got embarrassed by Ish Smith. Lots of people get embarrassed by Ish Smith, who is a foot smaller almost than LaMelo. Caring about winning, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see LaMelo on a public face just talk about it's hard when everyone's in your face all the time. He's a teenager. He definitely made progress to me as a professional on the court. He cares more. He didn't clean his sneakers one time all season. He does stand up a lot of defense.
Does everybody know what you're talking about?
He's not cleaning his sneakers. Yeah, he's not wiping his shoes off while the game's going on defense. So that's a positive. He's a brilliant passer, like really special. I do think it's going to be harder for him next year. I think you can game plan for him better. And I think the Pacers have a chance to do that. You have to tell your team, whenever you're playing against LaMelo, always assume your guy's open. Because a lot of times LaMelo, Steve Nash did this too. He makes a pass just because the defender's asleep. because normally guys don't make that pass. So LaMelo was willing to do it. And you got to be more aware. Also, I've said this before, people keep closing out up high, but he shoots it from below his waist. You should close out horizontally and influence that. They might do that in the postseason. But Terry Rozier, by the way, has become one of the best offensive players in basketball. And Devontae Graham is very, very good.
And this is the most likely thing, right? We do this when we're previewing playoffs or whatever. We talk about the stars, but then what actually happens is somebody else becomes the star, right? Like, and I don't know who I love. Karis LeVert, Terry Rozier, Devontae Graham. Like, I'm very excited that a week from now or Friday or whatever, we're gonna be talking about one of those people is gonna be the hero.
Yeah, I think though, when you cut this part out, and you should have, I knew you would, but I had fun doing it anyway. Like, I just can't, you wrote this part, you let me keep this in. I kept thinking of George Costanza, like, we're all excited about these playing games, and it's about nothing. If the Lakers went into it, it's definitely about nothing. Like, the Warriors are not beating the Jazz or the Suns, I don't think. It doesn't mean they can't make it competitive, right? The Nuggets won a game from the Lakers. They still lost in 5. The Heat won 2 games from the Lakers. They still won in 6. So I don't think any of these teams are going anywhere. And that's what we really shouldn't forget, right? Is there's some really good teams just licking their chops waiting while these teams are having to play and not getting rest.
Yeah. So we just talked about this on the phone, but I think there's an interesting thing here though, which is the NBA has a shortage of things that matter. Right. So we're talking about nothing in terms of who's going to win the championship. Like the WNBA just started this Commissioner's Cup. We know in European soccer, they have
all sorts of cups.
They have a million, the UEFA, the Champions League, the FA Cup, on and on. Yeah. They just got involved. We're trying to start another one. Right. So I think there's real value in basketball and just having more things that matter. Like, I'm a Blazers fan. It matters to me that 2 years ago the Blazers were in the Western Conference Finals. Nobody else gives a crap, right? But it inspires you a little bit, right? So this tournament, I think, doesn't matter in terms of our thinking that the championship is everything. But if we expand our thinking to like, no, there are other things that matter, then it matters just for its own sake, right? Like somebody's going to be a hero. Karis LeVert might blow our minds, and then that'll be worth it just for that reason, right? It's a chance for.
I completely agree. I wrote in my article. This is what SNL is all about, right? I've been watching Saturday Night Live since it first came out when I was 10 years old in 1975. And my wife, I've been watching with my wife now since 1980. I started dating her in 87. So we've been watching it on and off, since 87. As we've gotten older, we watch it on tape, the next day, whatever. And you're lucky to get 2 skits in 10 or that are any good. And a couple of monologues here and there are fun. But when it hits, it's unforgettable. And so there's no loss here. There's a real good chance Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night, there will be a player or two that we'll be talking about for a while. The team may not last very long, but the play will. That also helps explain or create a narrative for that player. Like we were talking earlier today, if the Grizzlies end up making the playoffs now, and John Morant's a big reason for it, this is going to go into his legacy.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think the guy is going to be an absolute superstar. I really do. And we haven't seen too often where the number 1 and number 2 picks are superstars. Zion and John Morant have every chance to be absolute superstars. And so him getting the Grizzlies into the playoffs in year 2, pretty damn good for that legacy, right? When you think about Hall of Fame, that's how it starts.
And like business wise, I mean, this one guy who's like a super knowledgeable NBA insider business head guy said to me years ago, basically, the growth audience that matters for the NBA is video on cell phones in China among young people, right? So like for that game, this could be a big week, right? Like it could be that Devontae Graham does something that's seen 100 million times, right? On cell phones in China, which is a big thing. It doesn't really matter. Young people globally aren't going to watch the game, right? But they might have a moment where they get excited about the NBA instead of playing video games or else they were going to do, which is. So this is what late night TV has morphed into. I've listened to all of them, Colbert and all of them talk about it. It's all about that one segment that goes viral, right? But sports didn't used to be talked about that way, and clearly here we are. I will tell you something else too. I just tweeted this out actually to Scott Van Pelt, who was talking about the hockey game last night.
I don't remember if I was on the phone with you. I think I was. And I had 3 NBA games on and a hockey game, which I don't watch much hockey. And it was the Lightning Panthers. So it's a local team. They're defending champs. Oh, yeah, it's game 1. And I heard they don't like each other. I don't really follow it. I can name maybe 3 players from one team. And in terms of intensity, my eyes, because I had all the volume off, my eyes went right to that hockey game. Those guys were getting after it. It's such a fast and furious game.
So
but for viral moments, how would you know in basketball, a lot of the game is kind of walking around? It's going to be those really athletic, special things, big shots or whatever, great defensive plays. And more games like this, add to that. So, but again, if you think about big picture narrative, we're arguing over Jokic being MVP. Somehow people think he's not. And then people keep thinking the Jazz are like this paper tiger. And I don't know what the hell they're talking about. Now, if Donovan Mitchell doesn't play, yeah, they could lose round 1. But if the Lakers lose the first game and win the second game, it tells you something, by the way, if they lose to Golden State. And then they got to play the Jazz. I mean, Utah's really damn good. And for a long time, we've been saying this. And they still made the 1 seed without their best scorer and second best player. Some people think Donovan's their best player. He's not. Rudy is. I don't think it's even close, by the way. But I looked up the top net rating. I just did this today. Top net rating for any player. So offensive rating minus defensive rating for any player that's played 40 games. So rotation players. In other words, guys come in and blow out. So top 3 are Utah Jazz players. Conley, Gobert, and one of the bench players, George Niang. It's amazing. Like, they are crushing people. And they hit 17 threes a game, I think, and give up like 12. That's 15 points. That's a lot of fucking points when you're fighting about 1 point here and there, right? And they don't foul. So they take away your threes. They make way more threes than you. They also shoot more, but they make more. And they don't put you on the line. I think they're number 1 in the league in free throws attempted defensively. That's a lot of math on your side, isn't it?
Well,
that's a lot of math.
Yeah, and I tweeted something about the Clippers, might trip into the Jazz in the second round here. And some guy on Twitter was like, "Oh, everyone knows how to beat the Jazz. It's easy. You just play small." And I remember just thinking like, the record would indicate that there's nothing easy against the Jazz. They're waxing everybody. Like, I don't know. What do you think of this going small idea?
Well, we'll get a chance to talk about it in the playoffs here. I think that last year they were missing their best ISO player, which is not Donovan Mitchell, and it's not Rudy Gobert. It's Bogdanovich. Yeah. And he has found his rhythm. He broke his wrist and really was not good for a large part of the year. He's been dynamic, and he is a bully. He plays the way the Wizards play. He can shoot threes, I think 36 points, something percent on the year, but he can blow. I mean, he takes big guys. He brings them outside, and if they back off, which they want to do, he can shoot it, or he can just drive by them. He's very good at finishing around the rim. Reverses are great at, but he also backs you down against buckets. Jordan Clarkson against bigs, that's a wrap. He drives me crazy, but he is a phenomenal scorer. He just doesn't know how to turn it off. Yeah. If he's cold, I wish he would pass more. But big guys can't stay in front of him, and he shoots the 3 well. And then, of course, they got Donovan Mitchell. And Rudy Gobert is a lot of pick and roll, so he can roll with the little guy, and he goes after every offensive rebound. His motor is so impressive to me. To your point is right. Teams have tried going small before. They've tried switching before. They'll lose if they turn the ball over a lot, which isn't normally a major problem, but it is, and there are some of their losses. They'll lose if Clarkson just shoots them out of games, which he does sometimes, or if they just can't make a 3. But they might change a little bit. During the regular season, they'll keep chucking threes up when they're missing, guard or not. They just shoot them. I can see a little bit of a change in the postseason where he'll say, what Quinn Snyder will say, guys, they can't guard us. They're taking away our threes on purpose. Attack, cut more, drive more. I can see them doing that. They have a lot of weapons. There's a reason why they have a dominating net margin.
Are you worried about Donovan Mitchell's ankle?
I'm more and more about him taking 4 or 5 games to recover, to at least. I mean, he didn't miss 2 months. He missed 3 weeks. It's not nothing. Yeah.
Well, so yeah, he would have been playing if he were comfortable, right? Like it's a.
Oh, he's definitely hurt.
Yeah.
He's definitely hurt. I think they were really worried about re-injury. My sources tell me he's going to be fine, but he isn't. Although they were telling me Mike Conley's going to be fine, they were right. He is. Conley's looked great, and Conley is, secretly had a phenomenal season.
Oh, unbelievable! Yeah,
on both ends.
Yeah,
Defensively, he's a monster too, and then Rudy inside. Yeah, you were talking about Phoenix. Like, I see a huge drop off between the two.
yeah.
I do, and we'll talk to Gerard about the East. I think he knows the East way better than
Gerard, would you like to join us, sir? Are you available?
Yeah, there's a few teams in the East. There's 3 teams in the East I like better than Phoenix, because I like Milwaukee, Brooklyn, and Brooklyn, and Philadelphia.
Yeah,
better than I do Phoenix. Phoenix just stopped guarding this year. I wrote about it last week. They were like 27 to defense in the last month or so. That's a problem for me.
Yeah.
Hello, friends.
No.
Hey, Gerard.
We have, what we haven't done in a while is picked our finals predictions.
Oh God, yeah.
I can't even think about that. What did we cover, Gerard, though, that you think we should be talking about?
No, I mean we hit on everything. I mean, besides
we haven't talked Miami Heat.
Well, so it's so funny, right? Like, everyone's like, because you know how Twitter is, like, jokes greater than facts. Like, we gotta just get on here and get
line.
So everyone's like, the Bucks, they're afraid of the Heat, they don't want that smoke, like, whatever. And I'm like, look, if you're the Bucks, like, and you have designs on winning a championship, which that's obviously what they do, yeah. Right? They're one of 8 teams who could win this whole thing. They ain't afraid of the Heat. Now, do they have to exercise demons and sort of, prove it to everybody? Yeah, the Bucks are in that weird space that nobody believes them until they do it, right? But every team is that, because they haven't won it. But for whatever reason, because the Bucks had the 2-time MVP, DPOY, they've been the best regular season team, and they flamed out. Although one of those flameouts was, they did get to the conference finals against Kawhi. Like, it wasn't, and it was double overtime for that next game. So it's not like,
oh, that's right.
It's not like they choked every year. It's just these margins are small. But yeah, right. I think the Heat Bucks first round is interesting, but because of what we said, right? Like, Spo is incredible as a coach. I think the Heat are not as good this version of the playoffs as they were last year in the bubble. But you do know that they certainly won't be afraid. And they certainly know, like, yeah, we're confident we can beat this team. But I think the Drew Holiday addition makes Milwaukee different, because he is, and I don't like, crapping on other players, but, like, he is significantly better than Eric Bledsoe in every possible way. Like, every possible way. And that matters, right? So do you think PJ Tucker, not just as an on-court presence, which I'm not convinced is going to be so special, but just that persona? Because when you rightfully mentioned what Miami did last year to Milwaukee and the 2-time player of the year, all of that, like, there's going to be some anger. Like, I don't think Milwaukee is upset they're playing Miami. I don't think so either.
I feel like that's fucking who we want to play.
I think so.
Because you slay that giant in their money, that you get that off your back. I think it's freeing. They're not the number 1 seed. He isn't the MVP. Like, I can see Giannis. Have you watched Giannis recently?
No, he's been outstanding. Yeah. And I think you're right, Coach. Like, Henry, we do this all the time, and it's important, right? Like, you look at, dunks and threes is our favorite spot to look at, adjusted net rating, and all things and those things are obviously what we can measure and see. But there is something to the immeasurable, right? The thing that we cannot see, that intangible thing of, no pressure on us this year. They're saying Bud can't make adjustments. They're saying I was a fraud MVP. Like, that internal motivation, and the Heat think they got us, cool. And we beat them in round 1, what that does to buoy and galvanize us as we move now into the semifinals. Now, there's no measure for that. I don't know how to quantify it, what it means, but I know it's valuable, and I know you guys would agree with that.
Yeah.
I also think just, hanging around, right? Like, I guess we like this idea that, these 2 series the Bucks lost in the past prove they're like a certain kind of failure, right? And they don't have a certain something. It's like, it doesn't really mean that. Like there are really good teams every year, and one of them wins the championship, and all the other ones lose a series, right? Like, it doesn't really prove anything about those other teams. The Mavericks were that hanging around team for a decade, and then Dirk got a title, right? Like, they've been hanging around a little while, not nearly a decade, right? And they haven't won yet, but maybe they had to change nothing and just play it again and win. Right? Like, I don't know. I happened to go to that unbelievable end of regular season game 2 years ago when it was like Giannis and Embiid had like a scrap basically. Like it was
really, I don't remember this.
It was an unbelievable show of like two very, very long-armed men, like just hammer dunking on each other and very physical. And it was delightful. It was really like, I was like, it was a wow moment. You know, it really was. And from that moment on, I honestly don't remember who won that game, but I remember thinking like the Bucks are absolutely contenders, right? Like, and they didn't win that year or the next, but Drew Holiday, hell yeah. You know
but it's like it's like you said, Henry, right? Like that's why I said in one of my earlier True TV videos, celebrate the Final Four. It's hard to win this shit, really hard. Like, and just because you lose, to your point, it doesn't define you. You're a career, lifelong loser. No, it's just that fucking shit happens. Like you run this
1 out of 30
thing. LeBron James.
1 out of 30 thing. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think I mean, to be doubted is not something Giannis has dealt with for a couple of years. Like when he arrived, the doubts were gone. There's doubts, like there's real doubts now. And I don't want to doubt that dude. Like, LeBron made a living of killing doubters. So did Jordan. The difference was Jordan created the doubters in a work of fiction, right? Yeah. LeBron, we had reason to doubt some of LeBron's team. They were really bad on defense in the regular season for the Cavaliers. Giannis's doubters are real. There's real concerns. I think Drew is right there for all NBA this year.
Yeah, both teams, all NBA defense and offense.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he might make an all. I mean, he's really good. I think Bud and his staff might feel like, all right, you want to critique me, fine, but we're okay. We're gonna be all right. Yeah, they go up 2-0 in Miami, which is possible, of course. They're going to breathe a lot easier, and they might get like that's a team that could really steamroll some people. Mm-hmm. That's a team that could really steamroll some people.
There's I'm about to make a really weird point. So like Zion right now is in this thing where he's kind of like I can just score on you guys, right? Like I'm just a machine, and what we don't really know is like how many different ways can you solve the Rubik's Cube, right? Like they're going to put together like different schemes for him, right? He's like Cleveland LeBron the first time, right? Or I remember like when Bradley Beal's, but now Bradley Beal's been doubted. Giannis has been doubted. And now like they're kind of like leaner, tougher, grittier. Like they don't smile as easily. But now they're like practically everything that might show up in their way is something that they have already figured out. Maybe they aren't quite as explosive and fast as they once were as young, but they're just like, oh, this shit again? Okay, all right, boom, 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 do this, boom, 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 like over here, I got this guy over here, been working on this all year. I knew this was coming, and there's a lot of wins in the playoffs for players who are like super calm, just like Jimmy Butler in Miami last year, right? Just like, hey, I got all this shit, don't worry. Like,
there's something to be, your guys are right. There's definitely something to be said psychologically about what happens after you've been really tagged. There's the cliche, until you get hit in the face. I've been coaching that exact thing for a long time. And I remember my son had never played AAU basketball. He was a high-level baseball player, was not good in basketball except for rec ball. Big difference between the AAU and rec ball. And I'm like, let's go play an AAU tournament. And we played up. He was only in 4th grade. The rest of the team were 5th graders. None of them were very good, but they're all stars in rec ball. And our first game, my wife took a picture of it because I never want to forget it. I think we lost 70-9 or something like that. It didn't help that I was the head coach and the other coaches were loving to beat Coach Thorpe, right? My son, at one point, I had to take him out of the game. He was crying, like not bawling, crying, but he had never seen full court press. You can't press in rec ball. And these guys were super long, athletic 5th graders, and he couldn't dribble the ball against 2 guys, whatever. And I thought it was fantastic. Because you got to go through it at some point. You have to go through that. You have to just absolutely losing a little bit. No, you have to be tagged, like knocked out in sports, and probably no different than many things in life. And then you realize I survived that, right? And you just kind of build in your reference point. That also sharpens your focus for practice. Like my son never in his life has had, this was a long time ago, 10 years ago, had to imagine what it's like to be double teamed by really tall, athletic, fast people. He had it when he was 10 years old. And it was shocking to his system. And now, I mean, if you watch my son's high school tapes over the years, he wasn't the world's best player. He didn't worry about pressing. You didn't want to press my son. I've talked to the other coaches. Like that was the one cat you did not want to go double team because you were 80-foot pass for a layup. He's seen it all because he started when he was 10. So Giannis and Milwaukee, like they know what it's like to have their guts ripped out and to be mocked by and too. And so that's when you're most dangerous. That's why I always say you have to lose those big games before you win them anyway. That's part of the DNA you need to have, you know?
And I think there's a lifestyle component too, where like you can be 23 and eat badly and sleep badly and kick people's butt, right? But if you're, and I am not like I'm generally a much bigger fan of like younger players are better, like but if you are 32 and at the top of the NBA, like 100% you've got your diet and your sleep and all that stuff's together, right? Like you just can't be 32 eating pizza all the time. Like
it's so true.
We talk about it. It's reference points, right? It's like the first time freshman year of high school, I'm in like, I don't know, basic or like some easy like computer class. And I'm like Boolean expressions. I have no idea. But by the time senior year, you're in AP comp sci. No, I got it. Like, right? Like, you know what the things are coming from because my brain can go, oh yeah, I remember that. Reference point, same thing. Everything slows down. It's not just these crazy things like, I don't know what any of this shit is, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes naivete is a good thing in dealing with pressure because you don't even know to feel the pressure. But in the postseason, that tends not to be the case. Like Michael Porter Jr. felt pressure last year. It has helped, in my opinion, define who that cat is now. And that's why, I mean, Denver's not going to be any kind of easy out, right? They tasted the finals, and it was all fun and dandy when they were there, and they got their ass kicked in 5 games. And then you start realizing, oh my God, we were like, they almost won, I think, game 4 of that series. That have made it 2-2. Like you start realizing how close it is, and how I always tell players the same thing all the time. When they make it far and then lose, I always remind them, you may never go back again. Like you have to work your living ass off to ever get the chance. So few guys ever can do it. It's so hard to win.
Go back again. Sorry to tell you.
It's hard.
It is. By the way,
trying to beat you.
Have you seen MPJ's effective field goal percentage in true shooting this season?
Like over 70, maybe?
Ridiculous.
Am I right? Over 70? 68%.
It's crazy.
He looks very comfortable. Yeah.
Like
He's very comfortable.
He's a super talent. All right, so Gerard, what are your picks? I made my picks. You guys can go odds. You don't have to pick. Just give me this. Like, what do you think the chances are of these 4 games?
Man, I think, God, one game, I like Steph Curry. I'm going to go 55% on that one.
Let's go. I like it.
Because I want Lakers Jazz in the playoffs in round 1. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think, the Celtics, this just ain't their year, man. I'm going 65% Wizards. I love the Grizzlies, so I'm in the tank for them. I'm going to go 70% Grizzlies.
70%.
And then Pacers, Hornets. I just don't like either of those teams right now. I'm going to say 50-50.
You're going to call a tie. How about you, Henry?
I'm going to pick the Hornets like 55% just to be different. And I feel like they're like a little more volatile team. Like maybe like pull some crazy stuff. Yeah, I definitely got to pick the Wizards. 60% plus. Let's try to remind myself who this playing.
How about Spurs, Grizzlies?
Spurs. Yeah.
You were surprised at how down it was on the Spurs, so.
I mean, it wasn't very long ago the Spurs were beating the Bucks. You know what I mean? It was literally like a week ago, wasn't it?
It was last week.
That was the last win they had.
I know, but it was only last week.
Right. They scored 140 and then got smoked every game after.
Yeah. I guess I'll take the Grizzlies like 55%. A little worried about Gerard saying that Ja doesn't look healthy.
Yeah, not.
Warriors Lakers, I think I don't know, Steph Curry's in my head for just like a 1-game situation. I feel like I'll take the Warriors 55%.
All right. I like it. It'd be must-watch TV at least, so we're happy with that.
And we'll be back. David's going to predict the other games once we know who's in them. So
I'll publish something Thursday and Friday morning.
Judy says 12 o'clock is in
Friday. Playoffs, baby. We're talking playoffs on Friday.
Be safe, everyone.
All right. Thank you. See you later.